audience. This is the GE Monkey, and welcome back to Road to Dark Knight 3, The Master Race. I really don't want to talk about this comic. I mean, there are bad comics. There are terrible comics. There is horrendous comics, and then there's The Dark Knight Strikes Again. What more can be said about The Dark Knight Strikes Again than has already been said? Well, maybe The Dark Knight Strikes Again makes the most delicious, scrumptious plate of lasagna you've ever tasted come out tasting like month-old fail. I don't know if that's a thing. I don't even know if that sentence makes sense, but it has now been said about The Dark Knight Strikes Again. People were actually really excited for this comic, in case you didn't know. Back when it was announced, it was kind of a big deal. Sure, Frank Miller had messed up with, with Spawn v Batman, but, there aren't that many intercompany crossovers that are that good, even the ones that seem like they should be good. Spider-Man but Spider-Man and Batman, classic example of what should be a great comic but comes out a mediocre comic. I mean, he did The Dark Knight Returns, he did Batman Year One, he did some of the best stories in the history of The Dark Knight. And, he was getting the old team back together. He was getting the old colorist, he was getting the old artist, of course, himself. And, this is when computers were starting to be used to color in comics, so, the colorist was really interested in doing these cutting edge things, and the results, was going to be this epic story, what happened after The Dark Knight Returns, with Batman's army and the Sons of Batman, and, where's Carrie Kelly now, and the result is just so unentertaining and ugly and stupid and a misrepresentation of practically every single character, not just in the Batman mythos, but in the DC Universe mythos in general. And Frank, what happened to you? What happened to you? So, yeah. It has some of the most hideous art that I've ever seen in a comic. I mean, there's The Dark Knight Returns. Like I said, the artwork was hideous. It's not the worst of Frank Miller's career. It's not even the worst on Road to Dark Knight 3, The Master Race. But it is the worst on the Road to Dark Knight 3, The Master Race. It's not the worst of Frank Miller's career, but it's the worst drawn Batman comic I have ever had the displeasure of laying my eyes upon. The story, I'm not even going to bother with it. It's Frank Miller trying to, get the old band of the Justice League back together. Wonder Woman's in it, Superman's in it, they have a kid or something. I really don't remember that much of the story. It's just... I think I was seeing red most of the time that I read it. And I was just wondering what happened? What happened to you, Frank? The art is hideous. The plot twist with the Joker is beyond stupid and ridiculous. It just sucks out all the goodwill of Frank Miller, of Frank Miller's Batman, of the idea of these possible dark future stories. And it was good that we had already gotten a really, 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 really good dark future story with Kingdom Come, which, if you haven't read Kingdom Come, you should totally read it. The story is great, the artwork is great, it's great work. But The Dark Knight Strikes Again, it is just bad. It is really the thing that makes me extremely worried about The Dark Knight 3: The Master Race. The fact that this is the comic that came chronologically before it, with hideous artwork, stupid plot twists and character development that Frank Miller and Brian Azzarello, because in case you didn't know, and I'll get into this later when I give my thoughts on whether or not Dark Knight 3 will be good, Frank Miller has a co-writer this time, Brian Azzarello. Maybe he'll keep a handle on Frank Miller's stupid. Not that Frank Miller's stupid, Frank Miller's, occasionally stupid ideas of what to do with characters. But, yeah, it just sucks, people. It's a bad comic. I don't even think that you should read it for the curiosity of the spectacle. It's just, forget about this comic, screw this comic, bury this comic deep beneath the earth. Let people forget that it existed. Because it is terrible. And you know what the worst thing about this is? There's still one more comic to get through on this road, and The Dark Knight Strikes Again isn't even the worst of this. Oh, man. Well, that's all for now. This is the Cheeky Monkey. Stay classy. And screw this comic!